Alrighty, happy Friday, everybody, and welcome. Obviously, we're going to discuss market sell-off yesterday, continuing today. Timestamp: it's around 11 o'clock in the morning Eastern time, and right now, what are we looking at? Down around 400, Nasdaq down, S&P down. What does this all mean? Why is this happening? These are the questions that I get. If I could provide you a 100% accurate answer, I would. There's a myriad of things out there. And the reality of the situation, we are caught right now in a position, the overall markets are caught in a position where uh, they don't know what direction we're going. The Fed comes out. What do I mean by that? The Fed comes out this past week, and we broke down the Fed. You know what? We're going to have to, stay longer at these higher rates, and maybe we'll go to 5.25. Oh, that's not good. But then, you take a look at the bond market, and the bond market don't believe it. Bond market doesn't believe it. Doesn't believe the Fed's going to be able to do that. And we've got this tug of war taking place between whether or not the Fed's going to keep raising rates and really crush the economy and put us into a terrible recession, or that's it. Recession, earnings. What's it going to be? Are they going to lower? Back and forth? What's going to happen? Sometimes when when you get inflationary periods and you'll have good economic news come out, they'll say, "Oh, good news is bad news." Well, we're now starting to get some bad economic news, and it's not having the opposite effect. It's not. It's right now you're getting bad manufacturing numbers, bad retail sales numbers, and it's affecting the overall markets. Okay, how do we translate this? How am I going to make sense of this? What do you do as an investor? And I've spent a lot of time. I've written about this a lot. Again, not very good. Not very good at timing the markets, and quite frankly, nobody is. Nobody is. And it's this what's happening right now does not change our philosophy and what we're doing for our clients. We continue to look for high quality companies, great balance sheets, companies that pay you to own them. If you stick with that during, whether it be during ridiculously volatile periods like we have right now, it's interesting. The NASDAQ this year has had more, second most in history. 2% moves to the upside or to the downside over the course of the year. Second most in history. I think that the most was back in 2000 and maybe 2002, if I'm not mistaken. But I know that this was the second most in history. It's a lot of volatility out there. How in the world can anybody time that? You can't. You can't. You have to stay and you have to stick with what has always worked. And again, and I will discuss this at great length this weekend on the radio show. Down markets is where the real money is made. Again, I can go back, and it was difficult time. Of course, everybody was freaking out during the Great Recession. Everybody was freaking out. You know how many people did really stupid things with their money, went out and bought gold coins and other crap. They thought the world was going to end. The world doesn't end. If it's going to end, it's going to only end one time. So you don't bet on the end of the world. You take advantage of what the terrain is giving you at this point. And no, do I think that the markets are going to go back to their all-time highs anytime soon? No freaking way. No, I don't believe that that's going to happen. Could it? Yes. So what you do in the interim is you accumulate. You grow your portfolio, you add to your store. And when the market does eventually turn to the upside, man, you're going to see an enormous amount of wealth created in your portfolio. And I've gone back, I've mentioned this quote before, the old JP Morgan quote. During bear markets, during market sell-offs, stocks return to their rightful owners. That was a very arrogant statement by the guy, but is he wrong? What he means by rightful owners, he means smart money. Smart money. When you see the markets move like they're doing right now, you do realize what this is. Did you think that this is people running to their schlock broker or going to their 401k and dumping everything? Or is this algorithmic trading? Is this driven by options and a myriad of other things that are out there that are going to cause these types of swings? That's what it is. That's what it is. So again, you have to kind of, again, I know it's noisy when if you're paying attention to it all the time, but you shouldn't. Okay? You shouldn't worry about where the markets are trading today. You got to worry about where you're going to be 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years down the road. Do I think it's going to take 5 years for the market to come back? No. No, I don't think that that's the case by any stretch. But then again, if it takes longer than expected and you're accumulating and also you're getting dividends in your portfolio, compounding the royal road to riches, you're going to do fine. Everything's going to be okay. A lot of pessimism out there. A story about American pessimism, about the prospects for the economy in 2023. Well, yeah, pessimism is it kind of feeds upon itself. You know what I'm saying? You have people that are negative at work, or maybe you played a sport, you had some negative people on your team. You ever notice how it ends up becoming like a cancer and it spreads? It's true for the overall economy. It is. That drum starts going in that direction. You know, let's say we go into a recession. Do you want to participate in it or do you not want to participate in it? It's up to you. It's up to you. You can, if you want to participate in the recession, go ahead. I choose not to. Again, I choose to take advantage of every slowdown recession and look at it as an opportunity. Yes, I got to go across everything that we're doing in our work and try to become more efficient and more productive. Absolutely. But it's, that old saying there, is that it was John F. Kennedy used it in a speech, and I don't think it's accurate, but it sounds good. I don't. He was talking about how the Chinese language is made of symbols, and the one for a symbol, I think, for opportunity, had crisis and danger, something to that nature. Okay, for every situation is bad. The Rahm Emanuel. Okay, never let a crisis go to waste. He was Obama's chief of staff for a period of time. If you're looking at this a crisis situation, don't let it go to waste. Take advantage of what the terrain is giving you at this point in time. What else you can do? You're gonna sell off all your high quality companies and stick your money in a sock drawer? You think that's a prudent thing to do? Anyway, I want to talk about this too because, layoffs are coming, and I know we've discussed this before. Good layoffs versus bad layoffs. Today, you had Goldman Sachs announcing that they're going to cut up to 8% of their employees. They've already had some layoffs there at the company. Like, oh, that's terrible. Goldman Sachs is hurting. Goldman Sachs tried a foray into consumer banking, and it failed miserably. I got a sinking suspicion when you have a slowing economy, they're going to use this as an excuse, again, to cut things that are not working, and that's where the layoffs are going to come from. Now, would you consider those good layoffs or bad layoffs? Now, nobody likes seeing people put out of work, but again, companies need to survive, and they're not going to survive by having entire divisions that lose money. You want to be effective, you got to do the right thing by your shareholders. That's what a CEO has to do. David Solomon's probably going to cut this out, and that's where the layoffs are going to come from, for the most part. Now, Goldman Sachs usually has a culling every single year, but they really haven't done that throughout COVID. So I'm sure they're going to start doing that now as well. And you're going to see this in more companies. You've already seen it from tech companies. Twitter is still working, for crying out loud. You can still go on the Twitter. Yeah, what did he cut? Over 50% of the staff there at the company? It's still working? Again, that whole Dewey Oxberg from Stripes, John Candy's character there, a lean, mean fighting machine. That's what good companies do during recessions. They look to become a lean, mean fighting machine, come out on the other side much, much stronger. Um, Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve. I got a lot of questions in regards to this. I broke it down yesterday. I'm telling you right now, they're blowing it. Okay, they blew it. They blew it last year when they called inflation transitory, and we here on the program mocked them, along with my mentor Jeremy Siegel and many others. Were scratching our head, being like, "What the hell are you talking about? This is not transitory. Start raising rates, please. Start." Going back into the summer of 2001. No, it's transitory. And Janet Yellen said it's transitory. And these are the same people that are telling us what they're doing right now is going to work. I'm not buying it. It's not. And it's completely unnecessary. I'm kind of hoping that, again, I mentioned this yesterday, we're doing a Fed breakdown, that they're just jawboning right now. I'm hoping that they're jawboning right now. They left themselves an out when they talk about being data driven. I don't want the Fed. I don't want the Fed to drive the economy into a ditch. I don't like seeing people put out of work. And we got a weakening economy now, and still people can go out and find jobs whenever they want to. I mean, you can fall out of bed and get a job. The amount of openings that are all around the country. I've used that statement, ridiculous statement by some colonel during the Vietnam War, where he said, in order to save the village, we need to destroy the village. In order to save the economy, you don't need to destroy the economy. And I really wish that, Jay Powell, Larry Kudlow mentioned this in one of his rants. He said, would actually grow a set. He didn't say it that way. He was a little bit more tempered, and actually put it to the folks in Washington, D.C. and say, because listen, okay, politically, economy going into recession, bad for politicians, bad, not good. And, you could go there and say, hey, listen, why don't you guys, cut down all the ridiculous spending. Let's get some fiscal restraint here. Let's lower the deficit. And then we can see what we can do about rates. I think it's a better way to go. And actually, Larry Kudlow and his piece yesterday, he's actually mentioned that that was done before. Paul Volcker and Alan Greenspan used to go to Washington. They used to do that. Anyway, we'll get into that a little bit, and spending from Republicans and whatnot. I want to move on. I want to talk about this 1,656 pages of new stock market regulations. Could you even count the amount of rules and regulations we have for the financial markets? I mean, it's got to be, 50,000 pages. I couldn't even tell you. Could anybody actually make heads or tails or understand it? You talk about, go back to Sarbanes-Oxley. You could go to Dodd-Frank. And now they're rewriting some sort of trading rule book, and it's 1,656 pages long. I mentioned this before. There was a Steve Jobs interview back in the 1980s. And he was being interviewed, and he was talking about, the computing at the time. And he gave a dig. I think it was WordStar back in the early 1980s was the word processing software. And he made fun of it. He said, this is going to catch on. And he made fun of the fact that the user manual for, I think, WordStar was some 400 some odd pages long. And he said, yeah, that's great. You got to read a novel to write a novel. Why do we need 1,656 pages? I mean, for crying out loud, the greatest piece of legislation ever written, Moses brought it down from Mount Sinai on a stone tablet. The 10 Commandments, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. 1,656 proposed regulations to rejigger, payment for order flow and all of this other crap. It's a bunch of horse manure, people. It's great if you're a lawyer. As soon as I see any type of regulation that's like this, 1,000 pages. Okay. It's written for lawyers in the sense that it's got loopholes in it and gray areas. And lawyers make a hell of a lot of money billing due to loopholes and gray areas. They do. It's a reality. This is not going to help the financial markets just as much as Sarbanes-Oxley didn't help the financial markets, just as much as Dodd-Frank didn't do anything. Bullshit is what it is. Waste of time. Anyway, latest in the crypto universe here. The auditor, we talked about this here. Again, don't doubt me. I'm seriously considering, getting like a t-shirt line or something and selling it on the WatchDog on Wall Street website. It just don't doubt me. WatchDogOnWallStreet.com. Yep, the auditor, like we said, has now said, well, no, we can't. We're not gonna audit these crypto companies anymore. They say they have all of these coins, but we don't know if they do. Again, you've got your money there. Come on, people, wake up. What was the other one there? These guys pitch me every single day. I'm getting emails from this Grayscale Bitcoin spot ETF, and the SEC wants no part of it at all. They said it needs, because it's under the commodities. I'm trying to get my arms around this stuff, and I'm like, no, I'm not buying some crypto ETF. You've got to be flipping kidding me, man. Anyway, government spending. Let's get into that, shall we? Senate has passed a 1-week government funding bill averting shutdown. Okay, we got that. And I'm sure they're going to use the next week to probably, again, this is where I show pessimism. Okay, it's where I show pessimism because I don't trust the elephants nor the donkeys. I don't. It's getting to the point where it's embarrassing. It really is. The type of pork that they're packing in at this point in time. Larry Kudlow's piece, the omnibus spending bill is antithetical to economic prosperity. And, some of the things that he pointed out and how, the Fed, some of the statements looks like they want to have a recession, and said recessions are bad for stocks. Yeah, they're bad for stocks leading up to the recessions. This is where Larry's off a little bit. Recession stocks tend to outperform because they're thinking of coming out of the recession. And this is where he mentioned, he said, Powell really had a hair on his chest. I said it a little bit differently. He would stand up on his hind legs and tell Congress to stop excess federal spending or taxing or regulating and end the war against fossil fuels. Again, these are all things. That's great. Larry's talking about this now. But we, as you all well know, we've been banging this drum for over a year now. I jumping up and down here on the program. Federal Reserve can't pump more oil. They can't go out and get more natural gas out of the ground, can they? How the hell? I mean, seriously. So the only thing they got to do is wreck the economy, put people out of work so they're not using these things. So you have, in essence, you have demand destruction. So the supply comes up and the prices come down. Is that any way to run a railroad? No, it's not. Anyway, let's go back. If you recall, Jay Powell, he didn't have any problem with the spending bills in 2021. Neither did Janet Yellen. He was at the same time. Everything's transitory. Everything's awesome. He was wrong. Senator Rand Paul did an interview it was a few nights ago on his program, and I'm going to quote him. It was great. You go on YouTube. Actually, I had several people send me the interview. I saw it. Big fan of Rand Paul, as you all know. The omnibus will be 3,000 pages. We'll get it 2 hours before they want to pass it, and no one will read it. But hidden in the 3,000 pages we are going to waive pay-go. So Steve Moore is right. We talked about this here. Was it yesterday, the day before? It will take 41 votes. But the other thing is 41 votes would stop the big spending. We have completely and totally abdicated the power of the purse. Republicans are emasculated. They have no power. And they are unwilling to gain that power back. Yep. Yep. Rand Paul also mentioned the last time he proposed to enforce spending caps, he had 3 votes plus himself in the GOP Congress. That's it. Again, and this is going to be some jagged little pill, some really bitter medicine for many of you listening to this right now. But I have to go there. I'm brutally honest here, and I'm sorry. I don't listen to your podcast anymore. Then don't. You want me to lie to you? Okay. The Republican Party right now is a frickin' disaster. It's an embarrassment. It's almost like we have people in office that are priding themselves on being anti-intellectuals. It's like they're priding themselves on being stupid. And I'm tired of it. I really am. Okay? I don't listen. I don't judge people based upon, how far they went, their degree, or if I walk in their house and they've got books all over the house. Okay? There's something called wisdom as well. And there's a difference. We're losing here. We could be winning, but we got a large group of people out there that want to continue to drive us to this idiocracy world. Ever see the movie Idiocracy? If you haven't, check it out. I'll give you the premise. And it was a pretty funny movie. It was like a cult classic, 2006. You got an average guy in the Army. You're supposed to go into some suspended animation chamber for a year. Well, they forget about it, and it ends up being 400 years. And he wakes up, and we've de-evolved. Society has gotten dumber and dumber and dumber. It's a pretty funny movie, and I recommend it. Anyway, we're going to pride ourselves on stupidity now. Marjorie Greene, Greene Taylor there, the one from Georgia. She's one of the representatives from Georgia. She was, I guess the Republican in New York City, the Republican Party in New York City, one of the clubs there. I don't think it was at the Union Club, Park Avenue there. If it was there, I've been there. Place, really nice place. It's embarrassing. She got some sort of Richard Nixon award, and she's given her speech, and she was talking about the January 6th riots, and she said, hey, if Steve Bannon and I were running those riots, we would have won, and we would have been armed. You think you're going to be adding people? You think you're going to be adding any sort of critical thinker that might be on the fence or independent to come vote for your side when you act like an asshole? Do you think Donald Trump? Do you think Donald Trump brought a lot of new voters over to the party yesterday when he decided to his major announcement was Donald Trump dressed as a superhero NFTs? You think that was productive? He's doing the right thing. It was actually one of the far right-wing loons that's going to jail for the riots and wrecking the Capitol. One of those loons that's going to jail actually got upset yesterday. Says, I can't believe I'm going to jail for an NFT salesman. Hey, well, maybe this week, Trump could get his own Bitcoin. He can have his own cryptocurrency, for crying out loud. I'm sure he's probably thought about it. It's embarrassing. Again, I share, and I've gone after, an equal opportunity basher here on the program. I've gone after Peggy Noonan here on the program with some of the columns that she's put out there that I thought were unfair, and many people go after her because they think she's a bit of elitist. Again, speechwriter for Ronald Reagan, and she's a little bit old school. There's no doubt about that. She's an intellectual. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay? There's nothing wrong with picking up a book or two from time to time. Just saying. I'm going to go over her column today, talking about disorder at the border and how the Republican Party is celebrating idiocy. We are in a crisis on the southern border. It's a disaster. El Paso, Texas is the latest city to be overwhelmed. This Monday from the New York Times, after nightfall on Sunday, hundreds of migrants stepped across the Rio Grande, a caravan of people mainly from Nicaragua, whose crossing was among the largest in recent years along the West Texas border. More than 50,000 illegal immigrants from Central and South America came in October alone. Some are sent to detention centers or shelters for a short time. Most are released to disappear into America. In Del Rio, Texas, last year, 9,000 illegal immigrants, mostly from Haiti, camped under a bridge. Rural counties are declaring a local state of disaster. It's dangerous. She talks about fentanyl. Says we're bringing fentanyl, get these groups and these thugs bringing fentanyl across the border, and every year they're killing more people than we lost soldiers in Vietnam the entire time in Vietnam. 98 people were stopped at the southern border. Stopped. These are the ones that were caught. Were on the U.S. terrorist watch list. 98. How many others got across that we don't know about? Democratic Party is committed to doing nothing. They made this position clear in the 2020 presidential primaries when candidates ignored border security and debated only who would guarantee broader social services for migrants. The Biden administration has shown energy in only one area, changing the subject. The Republican Party is rhetorically committed to stopping what's happening at the border, but do they mean it? Are they serious? If they were, they'd be trying to win support in America for broad, coherent action, right? Let's get something done. Novel concept. Again, I mentioned Maria Salazar down there in Miami. For crying out loud, she's put something forward. I don't see her on TV. She's got a comprehensive package that makes sense, where you could get some compromise. No, we're not talking about that. We're worried about pork barrel spending through 2023, through the end of September. Anyway, here we jump to Manhattan, to the already famous Saturday night dinner of New York Young Republican Club. Gowns, tuxedos, important national speakers, a special night. Donald Trump Jr. said Republicans must finally investigate Hunter Biden. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, in the prime speaking spot, received the club's Richard M. Nixon Award, given to a citizen who exemplifies the fundamental ideals of Americanism. She spoke of the January 6th attack on the Capitol. I want to tell you something. If Steve Bannon and I had organized that, we would have won. Not to mention, we would have been armed. She took other turns there, talking about Kamala Harris in boring colors. Not a single penny should go to a country called Ukraine, whose borders are far away and most of you couldn't find on a map. She talked about sex toys you can find at Target nowadays. Who knew? Her point, Peggy Noon's point, she says, my point is that she's an idiot. Isn't that she's an idiot, though that appears to be true. She once called Hitler's secret police the Gestapo, or that the audience, which laughed and applauded this, they're the idiots. I can't associate myself with people like this. Could you? You're going to cheering on. We're going to riot. Are you out of your mind? Just as much as the anti-FOB people with their riots. And I know that there's a double standard in the media. I get all that. Okay, that's the terrain. Which means what? As a conservative, you got to be on your best behavior. You can't be an asshole like that. You can't try to freaking overturn an election by sending people with freaking Jamiroquai hats on going into the Capitol. Stupid. Anyway, it is that you don't talk like this and applaud if you're trying to win anyone over to your side. You're trying, again, we just had to break down the election. Independents wanted no part of many of the candidates that were put out there by the Trumpster. No part whatsoever. If you're serious about making America better, you try to win people over to your side. If the speakers at that dinner were even a little sincere about controlling the border, they wouldn't be swanning about or beating their chests like chimps, but reaching out to those who share their alarm but aren't Trumpist. Instead, they stick with their own club, one that, at least in this instance, involves comparative wealth, a certain conception of glamour, and an insider feel. They seem to proceed as if they're all on the winning side, the side of what they call the base. But they haven't won a big election since 2016. Again, the article goes on, and she makes other points, and I know I'm gonna get beat up. All right, Peggy Noon's a elitist. She's a never Trumper out there. Listen, okay. I voted for the guy twice, despite my reservations. And I'm being honest. I held my nose and I voted for him. I did. Again, I go to the old South Park episode, going back to 2004 when it was Bush versus Kerry, and they did a whole parody of it where it's a giant douche running against a shit sandwich. Who do you choose? Well, anyway, made my choice. But if you honestly think that this is the way to go, these are the people that you should be following, I'm sorry. You lost me. You lost me. Again, what do you think Reagan would think of all this? Huh? Nothing wrong with using your head a little bit and showing a little bit of class at some point in time. And again, you're trying to win an election. You're trying to convince people to come over to your side. Do you think that that's the way to do it? You don't think that the left is going to jump all over that and they're gonna use that clip again and again and again? I remember when Mitt Romney made the stupid comment. It wasn't a stupid comment. It was an accurate comment. Excuse me. It was stupid that he didn't defend it when he got caught at some fundraiser in Florida talking about, it's difficult to get half the country to vote for him because they're all getting free stuff. And then they walked it back. But he was right. He should have defended it. He said the Republican Party, we're not about this. We want to get people off government assistance. We want them to be independent. But now, he's a wuss and he caved on that. But sorry, any people out there that think this is going to be a winner? This is a freaking joke, man. You super Trumpsters out there, your guy yesterday went out and sold NFTs of himself in a superhero outfit. It's like out of Idiocracy. I want to know who bought these things because I'm curious. I want to know who the dumb people are. They should make a list here. Make sure that I can avoid them. But if you bought that NFT, you should put a bumper sticker on your car so when I'm driving, I can avoid you. Anyway, how to get that off my chest. Have a great weekend, everybody. WatchDog on WallStreet.com. WatchDog on WallStreet.com. We'll see you.